Bismillah wa salat wa salam ala Rasulillah Kareem. Alhamdulillah. This is Uncle Samir and our new brother El Mandin, inshallah. And we will be discussing, as we did some discussing prior, and I think this is also a very good discussion for the rest of the new Muslims, for the New Muslim Institute channel in regards to discussing our lesson on understanding about the Sunnah and about the various groups and um, how to take and where to take knowledge and information from. And as I said, Mandin is a new Shahada, someone I gave Shahada to a few weeks ago. Actually, now probably about 6 weeks ago or so, something like that, maybe close to that, whatever. So this is one of our sessions which I decided that everyone else should take some benefit from. As we were talking, one of the things that I do, don't look at me, don't worry about looking at me. And understanding the Sunnah and how we practice, because what's going to happen? You will see Muslims praying in different masjids. You attend different masjids, and you'll see people praying in different ways. Somebody with their hands up here, somebody with their hands down low, maybe somebody with their hands on this side. You'll see different people will come and tell you, excuse me, different people will come and tell you, do this way, do this way. This is the Sunnah, do it like this. This is not the Sunnah, don't do it like that. This is, what you have to do. And people will come and approach you with these different things, some harder than others, some very mild, some very light, some very adamant about different things. So it's important to understand how those are derived, where they come from, and why there are some of those differences, how you are to navigate through all of that. It's very good to have someone, a mentor, a teacher, someone. You have to have. Unfortunately, this is one of the goals of the New Muslim Institute, is to actually systemize things. There's no continuity the way people are taught, the way New Muslims are taught. You basically left at the whim and knowledge of whomsoever you happen to be around. If that person happened to be somebody that have a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of experience, then you probably okay. If they're not, then, and not everybody that has knowledge can teach. There's a lot of imams from various countries that are here, and way more knowledgeable than I may ever be in my life. Most definitely, you know what I mean. Some are scholars, some are just imams. Just because a person is an imam doesn't mean that they are a scholar. There's many different ways that a person might become the imam of a masjid, which doesn't necessarily mean that they are, the most knowledgeable. Though sometimes many imams act as though, they know everything, and they don't know how to say, I don't know, and, let me go find out, because people expect them to know. Many times they will, hold that persona, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, more knowledgeable than, still most of them are more knowledgeable than I may ever be. But not everybody can teach, and not everybody teaches. Most people teach in a particular manner according to what they have learned. And though, as we were talking a little bit prior, before we started recording, about the basic 4 Islamic schools of thought, which is very important. And most people don't talk about them that much, and so that when new Muslims especially see and hear about different things, or this person says that, this imam said this, or I read this in this book, I read that in that book, they wonder why different differences. And many times people stick to something that they learned from their first teacher, or from the imam that they learned from, so adamantly, you know what I mean, that, this has to be right, this can't be wrong. And there are times that that imam or that scholar, that teacher, may actually even show the evidence for what they are, teaching. That they show this came from the Quran, and this is Hadith, this also supports that. But that does not negate the fact that there still may be another way that is also acceptable. This is one of the things that most people don't try to teach or give clarity or understanding about, is that There are certain things, following the Sunnah means following the example and teaching that the Prophet Muhammad that he did. Okay, this is his Sunnah. Anyone who claims to be Muslim, who claims to believe in the Quran, must follow the example of the Prophet. People say about Sunni and Shia and so forth. That's what Sunni means. Sunnah is his example. And Allah commands us in the Quran to obey Allah and obey the Messenger. So we have to follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad. Allah says that he is the best of examples to follow. So, that being said, okay, like I said, many people will teach in a certain way. They will tell you this, that you have to do this like this, or have to not do this like a particular thing. One of the things I like to say, and my way I generally teach most Muslims, is something to remember, and I want you to remember and to know that there are definitely some things that can be done one way and only one way. There are definitely some things that are like that. There's only one way that you can do it, and there's no other way that is acceptable for you to do that thing. There are definitely some things in Islam that are like that. However, those things that are like that are very few. And many people will try to teach in such a manner, in a specific way, that they teach you that everything is like that. It's like this is what the Sunnah is, and there's, no deviation from that. You can't deviate from one way or another. But this is not correct. The Sunnah is vast. And the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did different things at different times, in different ways, in different manners. And we can see there's a lot of difference between an Eskimo and somebody who lives here in the U.S. There's a lot of them. Though he might be a grown man and you're a grown man, we're both Americans, man. We're different age brackets, but we're both men. There are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences. Things that we like, that we may agree on, things that we don't. Our abilities are different. You know what I'm saying? In many different things. So everything is not one way and only one way. There are many different things in regards to that. As we were talking before, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he mentioned in the narration in regards to the best generation will be his generation, those who were his companions, Sahaba. Sahaba is what you will hear a lot of. Sahabi is one, Sahaba is plural, those his companions. In Christianity, Jesus had his disciples, same, his close companions who learned from him, who were meant to teach the others who came after. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that the best would be those from amongst his Sahaba. Of all the followers all the way up until the day of judgment, the best of them will be those who are actually his companions, his Sahaba. And then those who will come after them, and those who will come after them. So basically the first three generations. The Sahaba will call the Sahaba, then after them, what makes a Sahaba? Anybody who met the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did I say? What makes a Sahaba?
Anyone who met the Prophet, or the Sahaba is anyone who met the Prophet.
What else?
Within the first three generations.
Now, who met the Prophet? But what else?
They were Muslim when they met him.
Right. Okay. Right. And generally, you'll say anybody who saw the Prophet, but there were some Sahaba who were blind. So they didn't see him. You know what I mean? But anybody who met the Prophet, and while they were a believer, they met him. As I mentioned to you earlier, that there were some companions who were of whatever age. They could have been young, they could have been old. People who are not companions, but there were those who met the Prophet, but during the Prophet's lifetime didn't accept Islam, but accepted Islam after the Prophet had died. They were not Sahaba, even though they met the Prophet. They talked to him, they had conversations, they knew him. Excuse me. But at the time when they accepted Islam, they did not meet him until after he had died. So anyone who is a tabi, the next generation, is someone who met a Sahaba. Anybody who met a Sahaba, and while they were a believer, they met him while they were a believer, meaning that they had accepted Islam while they were a believer. And then the following generation, tabi'in, Anybody who in their lifetime as a believer met one of those people was the tabi'in. Those first three generations.
Right.
The various schools of thought that exist in Islam. The first and the most notable is known as Hanafi, following from Imam Abu Hanifa, rahmatullahi alayh. The next was Imam Malik, and many people are known as Maliki. And following that is Shafi from Imam Shafi, and following that is Imam is the school of thought called Hanbali, following from Imam Abu Ahmed ibn Hanbal. All of these, one of the things they know is that all four of these scholars were top scholars that were recognized by the Muslim world of that time during their lifetime. And all four of them lived in those first three generations. The Prophet basically put his stamp of approval upon the best of his followers would be his companions, and those who come after them, and those who come after them. Right. Even though we are 1400 years after the Prophet ﷺ, what we have to do is we have to go back and look to whatever we learn, whatever we see, it should be verifiable and agreeable with that which was taught in those first three generations. Right. And even some scholars, take it a little bit farther as, to, 4, 5, 6 centuries after the Prophet ﷺ, as things were really being codified. During the lifetime of the Prophet, revelation was still coming down, so things were liable to change. But after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, then things were systemized, codified. A lot of words that people use now, a lot of catchwords and phrases you hear people use now, they didn't even exist then. They are things that came later on, So you have these different groups. And this is not, and like I said, most people teach in a manner to highlight their particular group and their particular philosophy, and they teach this is right. The only problem with that is that those who teach in such a manner that they think this is right and that everything else has to be wrong. Right. It can't be like that. Okay. So you'll find differences in the way some people teach. How I teach and what I teach in terms of my prayer and everything else that excuse me, y'all forgive me for drinking while I'm talking to you. It's early in the morning, I'm doing the session, I'm still having my tea. All right. My scholar, my sheikh, my first, many brothers, as we've talked before, many of my peers, those who accepted Islam in my day, around my age, a little bit older and younger than I, many of them came through the Nation of Islam, or some other such group, the Ansar Allah, the Moorish Americans, a lot of these other pseudo-Islamic groups. I was blessed. I didn't come through any of that because I met my Sheikh Ibrahim Ismail, when I was 14, and not only did I learn about real Islam even before I had any knowledge or concept of the Nation of Islam, but my teacher, mentor, was somebody that really had true knowledge of Islam because he studied at Azhar in Egypt, and he was very knowledgeable brother. So I was blessed in that manner. That doesn't make me easy, but in the last 40 years, by the grace and mercy of Allah, I've been around a lot of people of knowledge and traveled this country well and had a chance to get some basic general understanding of Islam and try to seek a balance. Most of the teaching is that I try to do. Because Sheikh Ibrahim always taught basically without any particular school of thought. He would teach strictly about Quran and authentic Hadith. This was the way he used to teach, and what he would teach me in that regards. And even now, though you have now more prevalent than you did when I was your age, groups that proclaim to follow strictly the Hadith without following any particular school of thought, they really didn't exist that big at that time. So he was doing something even then that was kind of little bit unconventional. But since that time, I have learned and have understood it's necessary to follow one of the four schools. And as you grow, you learn that. Though I lean more towards Shafi, as most of the scholars of Hadith were following Shafi. That's one of the reasons, but not exclusively. But but mainly, I just want to cover this thing in here. And we've already been talking for quite a while. I want to cover some real main particular points before this becomes too long. One, four schools of thought. Uh, Imam Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali. There are some differences, and when people tell you to do something or not do something, they will relate some verse of Quran, most usually likely some Hadith. The Hadith, the scholars of Hadith also were in those first three generations. The basic scholars of Hadith that scrutinize the Hadith, that talk about to verify whether Hadiths were authentic or not. Yeah, there are some Hadiths that are not authentic.
So it was the Sahaba that made the determination?
Well,
Is that something he delegated to them?
No. Even some Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ allowed them to, and even told certain Sahaba to write certain things down of his speeches.
Right.
Okay, of things that he said, things that he did. Some did, some didn't. Okay. When you pick up any particular book and it mentions a hadith, sometimes in English translated as a tradition. Okay. You'll see at the beginning narrated by, for example, Abu Hurairah.
Right.
Okay, that would be the name of the companion. Okay, who was with the Prophet who actually made that narration. What you don't see, which is there also in the real books of Hadith, is that well, down at the bottom you'll see that you'll have narrated by Abu Hurairah. Then you'll have the text, the actual statement in that particular hadith.
Right.
Then at the end of that, you'll have another name that will either say Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, one of these other names that are there. That particular scholar is the scholar who verified that particular hadith.
Right.
From him, say for example, Imam Bukhari. You'll see down at the bottom it says Bukhari. Now from Bukhari to Abu Hurairah may have been any number of people. Bukhari got the hadith from somebody. He got it from his teacher, who got it from his teacher, who got it from somebody else, who got it from somebody else, who actually heard it from Abu Hurairah. Okay, who then, of course, stated he heard it from the Prophet. That's called the chain of narration. Okay, in Arabic it's called the isnad. Okay, isnad. That's the chain. Okay, most of the times in terms of a hadith narration, in terms of whether it one of the categories that the hadith may fall into, whether it is sahih, meaning the utmost authentic, whether it is hasan, meaning very good and acceptable, or one of the various other categories. There's about 7 or 8 categories. Weak being one of the lower ones, and fabricated, totally, absolutely fabrication being, of course, the most despicable of all of them. Most of the time when a hadith is classified in one of those categories, it is talking about the chain. It's talking about the isnad, the people in that narration. Bukhari will say, I heard from so-and-so, who heard from so-and-so, who heard from so-and-so. And what each one of those scholars did is they would check and verify from their teacher who they got it from. Okay, he told, well, I heard it from, Brother Muhammad so-and-so, and then that particular Bukhari or Tirmidhi or whatever will go verify that and find out that. And then everyone in that chain will be verified, will be scrutinized. If there's any break in the chain some way, maybe this person said he got it from so-and-so, but when the person examined this person's life and that person's life, find out that the two were never in the same place at the same time, so then there was a break in the chain. So now that narration is less than the highest level of authenticity. You see what I'm saying? If any one of the people in that chain was weak in their memory, or had some kind of other bad characteristics,
Mhm.
was not as honest or was weak in their, and some other thing
Right.
that would bring the level of hadith down to
Mhm.
certain categories. But again, that was just the isnad, the chain. The text, the actual statement in the hadith, see, chain can be noted as being weak.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
that weak, and weak. It can be weak for many different things, many different ways. It could be weak, but that does not automatically negate the statement
Mhm.
that's in the text.
Right.
Okay, because the text could be correct, you know, but that particular hadith might be weak,
Right.
or it might be hasan. And then you had different scholars who, some scholars accepted certain other scholars and said, okay, he's A1.
Right.
Other scholars say, well, he made this one small mistake, so that's going to bring his level down a little bit. This one didn't agree,
Mhm.
so he still kept him on this level. This one took him down a little bit to
Mhm.
that level.
Right.
So that's why sometimes you will have some differences with, even people who accept certain scholars and certain things and so forth. But anyway, back to us today. Um, so when people tell somebody, you asked me a little while ago in regards to shaving and the beard, um, and that's such. That's one of the things that is sunnah. It's classified as a sunnah, meaning example of the prophet. But you have sunnah. You have that which is most of the sunnah is in categories where it's the actions are mustahab. What does mustahab mean? That you get blessings and rewards to do it, but it's not any sin if you don't do it.
Right.
Most of what people say, this is sunnah, you should do this. This is sunnah, you should do this.
Mhm.
This is sunnah, you should do this. Most of the sunnah fall into that category. There are some things that are sunnah because the Prophet ﷺ said to do it and basically ordered to do it,
Mhm.
that it holds a higher level.
Right.
Okay? The beard is one of those because basically he ordered. This is why some of the scholars consider that as wajib. That actually, if when the Prophet ﷺ ordered you to do this, then not doing it becomes a sin. And the beard is one of them. So
Mhm.
those Muslims who actually choose to shave,
Mhm.
though some justify, this is something that, the last 100 years or so, especially during the times when um, various Muslim countries got colonialized
Right.
by all these different countries, the French and the Dutch and the
Mhm.
Italians and this and that, who big on that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's when these things started entering into the Muslim, community. And when you start having some scholars say, well, and especially they started making reasons because now the authority was insisting upon it and was looking
Mhm.
at you in a certain way if
Right.
you did it and didn't do it. You know what I mean? So they started to make various justifiable, accommodations and excuses for being able to do it. But it was considered something sinful. Even the Muslims would not, the Muslims of the past and the scholars of the past and the judges of the past would not. I mean, if you came into the Islamic court with a clean shaven, your witness was not even accepted.
Mm.
On,
Mhm.
on something, because this was high level. We're not
Even
on that. We're not
cleaning it up.
on. Should be kept neat. Not necessarily raggedy. Mine kind of raggedy, but
Whatever. I was just asking because I heard some of the guys yesterday saying that he went and got it
trimmed up.
trimmed up. Well, he said he was shaved, had it shaved, but it wasn't completely shaved. It was just cleaned up, boxed up, and all that.
Well, keeping a beard neat should be something that should be done because we should be neat and presentable,
Mhm.
even so forth like this shouldn't be raggedy. Even the Prophet ﷺ talked about those who had hair,
Mhm.
but kept it disheveled and not he got Allah blessed him, he got hair and he ain't trying to
Mhm.
take care of it and look
All right.
neat.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So nothing wrong with keeping it, but we should avoid shaving it. But now shaving the private parts under the arms and the private parts, this is something that is recommended to do. You know what I mean? Um, so, um, but um, the sunnah. So, what we taking? There are different opinions in various schools of thought. Some people will tell you you have to do like this. Some people will tell you that. This is why you'll hear different. You listen to some imam online, on YouTube, or this and that. Many times you won't know what school he follows. If he follows any particular school of thought or not. If he's talking about, he may talk about something that may just come. He said, well, he's just talking Quran and Hadith, and could be absolutely correct. The only biggest problem is that, and I mean, and what he may state that you should do this or not do that may be absolutely correct. The only difference is, and which I said, like I said before, you will run into those people who will tell you, no, but it has to be like this. That this is the only way. You know, and most of the time that's not true because many times there are various differences that okay, there is another way that is acceptable that you can be different. What I mean? Can't be somebody's own thinking.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just I
Like
don't
that
feel like doing like this.
precedent.
I want to do it like this. You know what I
Right.
mean? Has to be verified by the Quran and the Hadith and the Sunnah, and there may be other Hadiths that also, like I was talking before about prayer. Some people praying with their hands over here. Some people praying with their hands over here. Okay. I teach, of course, praying hand here on the chest. Okay. And there are other hadith people say, no, it's a bid'ah, they pray this way, this is innovation, this is that. No. There are other hadith that are verified hadiths that come from scholars that have been scrutinized from one of them that, give evidence and delil to pray with the hands over here. You know what I mean? So if you follow this, if you follow that, it's okay. I try to teach a little bit more towards the line in terms of Shafi and mostly verifying hadith. So anyway, it's always what I try to go. Some things you'll find um, that is acceptable in another school. Cause I haven't learned one particular school strictly as I believe I should, and I have intentions to try to do better. My teaching was generally in hadith studies and general in terms of what was the most authentic sunnah and the strongest of what the Prophet ﷺ did on a regular basis, and this is what I try to stick to. But so, but there's some balance, you know what I mean? And don't get caught up, don't get lost behind people who try to adamantly push certain things down your throat. You know what I mean? And say, do it like this or else.
Right.
Or do it like this or you are ahl bid'ah. Bid'ah meaning people of innovation. Okay, now you're an innovator, you are this. And now there are various masjids around the country who have come up and they're very hardcore like this. They're very hardcore. They have a certain way of thinking, and anybody who doesn't do exactly like they do, as strict as hard as they do, then they consider them outside the real Islam, and they criticize and talk about everybody, and basically scare almost all new Muslims in terms of, oh, don't go there, don't go to that mosque, don't go to them, don't listen to that one, don't listen to all the other people, they're off. And so the new Muslim is like, head is spinning this way and that way. What, where? Man, what? So now he wants Islam. So now he's sticking close to the people where he at. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay, because all these other people are crazy and off the hook, so I'm gonna stick over here. But you have to be careful for that. Inshallah, I hope some of this help you and some of the others. We're going to do some of our other session and talk about a couple other things that also for new Muslims in that class. And those of you who want, you can check out those other videos as well. Inshallah, hopefully put your comments at the bottom or your questions in regards to this if you have anything. Inshallah, may Allah make it easy for you, for me, and for all of us. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.